Our classic British cars were built with a variety of carburetor types and sizes. If you need a repair kit or a gasket, how can you identify what kind of carburetor you have? Well, thankfully, there are many reference materials that are going to help us. What I'm looking at here, this is the Moss Motors MGB parts catalog. Okay, probably you've got it in your house. If you take a look on page 3 in the black and white section, there's a page called Tech Specs. This has the information we're looking for. Along the left side here, it tells us the tune-up specifications and lots of other things about the original equipment that the car had. And then over here, we'll notice what it says. It says MGB Roadster from 1962 to 1970 was equipped with twin SU HS4 carburetors. It's right here in the catalog. It says that from 1971 to 1974, it had twin SU HIF4 carburetors. Again, it's right here. It's easy. And it says that from 1976 or 1975 to 1980, she had a single Zenith-Stromberg carburetor, which is designated the 175 CD. So the information is readily available. It's right there, and there are other sources as well. We do have a problem. It's not uncommon for these cars to be driving around today with carburetors that are different from what the car was born with. When that happens, your own ability to identify your carburetor is, of course, very important. And it's very easy. The SU carbs that these classic cars came with basically fall down into just 4 categories, 4 types. Let's see if we can see them and identify them. The first one is simply called the H-type carburetor. H is believed to mean horizontal. The carburetor would sit horizontally, and the air would travel through and come out and enter into the engine this way here. How can I tell if this is an H-type or not? Because they all kind of look the same. Well, if we take a look at the float bowl on the side of the carburetor, and we're going to look at the bottom of it, and as we do, there's a solid piece right here referred to as the bridge. It reaches from the bottom of the bowl to the bottom of the carburetor. The fuel travels through this, and this is how the bowl is held to the carburetor. It's held with one bolt. One large bolt. If you're taking a look at one of these carburetors and she's got the bowl on the side and the heavy bridge at the bottom and just one bolt, it's an H-type carburetor. It's just that simple. The next generation to come along was referred to as the HD carburetor. We've got one here. H again, she's horizontal. The air enters in and passes out that way there. To identify it, let's do the same thing. Let's find the float bowl. Let's turn it upside down and look at it. There's the bridge again, and again the fuel travels through here, but this bridge is not held in place with one big bolt like the other one was. This bridge is held on with 1, 2, 3, 4 small bolts that go through, or screws actually, that go through to where the diaphragm is. HD for diaphragm. She has a diaphragm inside. The next generation was perhaps the most popular, and this was the HS carburetor. We've got this here. H again, because she travels horizontally, the air goes through this way. And just like the D meant something in the HD type, the S means something in this one. What does it mean? Let's go through the steps again. There's the float bowl. Let's turn it over, and we're going to take a peek and see if we can find the bridge. There's no bridge. This is different right off the bat. It has no bridge. Instead, we've got a flexible line right here. The float bowl is connected up here on the side where the bolt is riding through a cushion at this end and a cushion at this end to separate the float bowl from the vibrations, or insulate it from the vibrations of the carburetor. This is the HS type. It's very simple to see. She's separated. She's insulated there, and we have no solid bridge at the bottom. The last one of the 4 is referred to the HIF, and HIF stands for Integrated Float. Again, it's a horizontal carburetor. We want to thank Joe Curto for this photo. I could not find an HIF here at Moss, so I contacted Joe and asked if we could use one of his photos, and he said sure. So let's take a peek. Let's identify it. We're going to look for the float bowl on the outside. Oh, there's none there, none there, none there, none there. There is no float bowl on the outside because it's an integrated float. The float is built on the underbelly of both carburetors. So how do you identify it? It's probably the easiest of the bunch. If it doesn't have a float, it's an HIF. So that takes care of that for us. Now, along with the designations that we've had, H, HD, HS, and HIF, there are also numeric designations. This HS4, for example, has a number on it. The number refers to the size of the carburetor. How does that work? Well, these carburetors have a throttle disc. You see it right here. Okay? That throttle disc is at least 1 inch in diameter. Okay, and she's mounted in this conduit. The number that you hear, like HS4, refers to the size of this diameter right across here from one side to the other. And it's something important we have to notice. We measure from the side where the throttle disc is. We don't measure from the side where the air cleaner is. They're different. This tends to be smaller. And if you just measure this, you're going to get into trouble and order the wrong parts for your car. So remember, we always go to the side that meets the motor. You'll have to take the carburetor off to do that, but that's where you're going to get your measurement. Now, how do the numbers work? Well, let me illustrate something. As we shoot this video this afternoon, we're about a half a mile from Highway 101 in California. Highway 101 goes for hundreds of miles. You'll see it on the internet. You'll see it on maps as Highway 101. But it's interesting, the people who live here don't call it Highway 101. We all know it's Highway 101. So instead, we'll just simply say the 101, or they'll just simply say 101. They might say turn right on 101. And you know what they're talking about because everybody knows that. And because we're naturally lazy as human beings, if there's a quicker, easier way to do it, a shortcut, a contraction, we're going to take it. They did the same thing with these carburetors. The basic dimension across on one side or the other was at least 1 inch. The very least, it was 1 inch. So instead of saying inch and an eighth, inch and a quarter, inch and a half, inch and 3/4, when everybody already knew there was an inch, they didn't bother with it. They just simply measured the distance after the 1 inch mark. And they measured it in eighths of an inch. For example, this HS4, there's an inch across and 4 more eighths. 4/8 is a half. This is an inch and a half carburetor. Well, that's pretty easy. An H2 carburetor would be an inch plus 2/8, which is an inch and a quarter carburetor. An HS6 would look just like this carburetor, but it would be bigger across here. It would be 1 6/8. That's 1 3/4. And I showed you an HD carburetor a few minutes ago. That was an HD8, which means there's an inch and 8 more eighths. 8/8 is a whole. That means 1. So with a basic inch plus another inch, it's a 2-inch carburetor. And that's how they were numbered. Lastly, amongst these, some of these cars ran a Zenith-Stromberg carburetor, and I've saved it here. I've saved it for last because it's the easiest. It tells you right on the top, this is a 175 CD carburetor. So all you have to do is just look at the top of it, and you know exactly what you're dealing with. So now you know the basic carburetors that we use on our classic British cars. The H-type, the HD type, the HS-type, the HIF type. You also know what the names mean, and you know what the numbers in the name refers to. Now you can correctly identify your carburetor and order the correct parts to keep your car on the road. Thank you.